What's up everybody, this is Val here, and I'm going to be going over the DPS support role of the Zenkosh DK. I'm sure you've heard the term, and you may already know what it is, you may not, but I'm going to go over the basics of it real quick here, so you can maybe add it to your rotation, or add it to your DK's available sets. It's a very good option to have, especially if you're running in trial groups. They're usually always going to want a Zenkosh DK and an EC Crow, so it'll definitely help out your group immensely. Um, so Zenkosh, basically it refers to two separate sets that you're going to be wearing. The first set being Zen's Redress, and the second set being Roar of Alkosh. Um, Now the Roar of Alkosh set, it drops from the Maw of Lorcaj trial, and the Zen's Redress set drops from Lair of Marsalak dungeon. Uh, the third part of this setup is usually the monster set called Encratis' Behemoth, and that can be found in Black Drake Villa. Uh, so the basics of this set are Alkosh here, and what that does is when you activate a synergy, you send a shockwave from your position that deals 1463 physical damage and an additional 8195 physical damage over 10 seconds. It also reduces the physical and spell resistance of any enemy hit by the amount of your weapon damage for the duration, up to a maximum of 6000. The damage scales off your higher of your weapon and spell damage. So basically what it does, it does some damage on its own, but it also reduces the physical and spell resistance of the enemies that are hit with the shockwave, which basically what that means is it increases your penetration to those enemies, which is very helpful in groups. Now, it's easy to get to the penetration cap, which is 18.9k, but if no one's running like light armor, which is very uncommon these days, not many light armor setups. If you're not running light armor or like the Crimson Oath armor set or Tremor scale, then most of your penetration is going to be coming from your tanks and from your Zenkosh DK. It's very, very helpful to the group. Penetration is super important. It's probably the most important stat for a damage dealer. Most people just don't care about it because it's very easy to reach the cap and they don't have to build for it because the cap is fairly low. But if your penetration is below 18.9k, then that is the priority. You need to get your penetration up to that amount. That's going to be the most important stat if you're not already at the cap. Now, for the Zen's Redress set, what this does is anytime you light attack an enemy, you apply a touch of Zen on them, and enemies with the touch of Zen take an additional 1% more damage for each dot you've placed on them. And this is very critical which dot you place on them because there are two separate types of dots. There are ground-based dots, and then there are sticky dots. And the difference is a ground-based dot only damages the enemy when the enemy is standing in that dot. That is a ground-based dot. Sticky dots move with the enemy. So the difference, let's say elemental blockade. When you drop your elemental blockade wall of elements on the ground, it damages your enemy when it's standing in it. But if your enemy moves out of that blockade, it's no longer getting damaged. So that is considered a ground-based dot, and it does not count for Zens. Zens only works with damage over time that is sticky, that sticks to it and moves with it. That includes status effects. So burning, bleed, and poison. When you proc those three status effects on the enemy, those count as sticky dots. The others that work are engulfing flames, the venomous claw ability, and degen. Those three are sticky dots that stay with the enemy, and they will all work for Zens. Now for your other two stacks, like I said, it can be bleeding, burning, or poison. And as far as bleeding, you can use Barb Trap for that. Claw should be proccing the poison status, and burning is getting procced from engulfing flames or any other flame-based damage that you're doing, probably from your Molten Whip or your standard might, whatever it is. But you got burning, bleed, poison, degen, claw, and engulfing flames. That's 6 dots. So you don't need all 6. So you can technically drop degen. You don't necessarily need it. You can just run engulfing and engulfing flames and the venomous claw, and then proc your bleed, your poison, and burning in order to get all 5. And now once you have all 5 dots on there and you light attack the enemy, then that enemy should be taking an extra 5% damage from everybody in your group. So 5% doesn't sound like that much, but you multiply that by 12 people, and so it's a lot of damage. So the last but not least piece is going to be Encratis Behemoth. And this is just a passive circle that appears around your body. You don't really have to do anything for it. It's just a passive buff and debuff. What it does, it keeps your group from, it gives your group a little bit of flame damage reduction by 5%, and the enemies in the aura take an extra 5% flame damage. So it's 5% reduced flame damage for the group and an extra 5% flame damage taken for the enemies. So it's good to pair with DK. And that is the Zenkosh DK. How you run it is up to you. Definitely want Alkosh on the body up at all times, so no matter what bar you're using synergies on, you're going to be proccing that set. And Zens can be run on the front bar. As long as you're light attacking on the front bar and then applying your dots, then you should be fine with applying those. As far as what weapons you want to run, you can do double staffs if you prefer ranged. But a lot of the DK's abilities are mainly melee, so you're better off using daggers and greatsword for the more damage. I definitely like to use the Maelstrom greatsword back bar, the stampede ability, and that sword mixed together just do insane amounts of damage. So that's usually what I run. But again, if you prefer staffs, you can just do Zen staff front bar and the Maelstrom perfected Inferno staff back bar. Standard Might is probably going to be your ultimate ability. It's very strong, does a lot of damage, also has flame damage. It's just a very good all-around ultimate for the DK. Other than that, that is Zenkosh DK. It can be a little tricky to proc Zens. Takes a little while to get used to, but once you do, it's very helpful to the group. I also run a stagger rotation, which is also very, very helpful to the group, which you're going to use this skill here, which is called Stone Giant. And what it does is every time you throw this stagger ability at the enemy, you give them 3 stacks of stagger, and it increases their damage taken by 60 per stack. So it's just more damage for the group. And Igneous Shield is another one that I like to run on my DK, which is just an extra damage mitigation for some group members. But other than that, it's very, very good for the group. Stagger is very helpful along with the Zens and Alkosh. So I recommend farming those sets and building one for yourself and getting it into trials and then testing it out, because again, it's very, very helpful to the group. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments or just DM me on Discord. Otherwise, you guys have a good one.